Hello everybody, my name is Niclas Huschenbeth and welcome to a new episode of Chess Endgame Basics. And today I would like to show you how to defend bishop against rook. So the only pieces on the board are a bishop and a rook. And there are a few important positions to know and I would like to share them with you right now. So here we have the first position on the board. And usually it only becomes critical for black if the black king is in the corner, clearly. And I would like to distinguish between the good corner and the bad corner. However, I have to make clear that both corners are usually a draw. But with the good corner, no matter what the white setup is, it's always a draw. And right here we have the good corner for black. And how can you find a good corner? So the good corner is the corner not of the bishop's color. So you can see this corner A8 is white, but the bishop is the dark squared bishop. And the point is that the bishop can always defend the king on the square next to it, so on B8. So let's see some concrete variations. It looks pretty dangerous for black, but after his check, this bishop goes back and now white cannot keep his rook on the 8th rank because wherever this rook moves, it's a stalemate. Black has no available move. And if the rook moves back, let's say to F5, now there's the threat of rook A5 check, winning the bishop, but now the bishop just moves away, bishop H2. And the only thing you need to remember here, only move the bishop back to B8 or to the square next to the king if white gives a check. Because otherwise, there's no reason to do so. Let's say white makes any move, rook F3, just keep the bishop on this long diagonal and there will always be enough squares. So don't worry, you will run out of squares. There will always be enough. Because if now the bishop goes back, then white can play this check and now you have to give the bishop and of course this is lost. Pretty much the only try white can make at this point is give a check and then play the rook back to H5. And here both bishop C7 and bishop G1 are fine. Just have to give a check because now white is threatening checkmate as well. So you cannot move the bishop somewhere else, let's say to D6, because then check and checkmate. So this is why give a check, very important. Now king c6, and now you can even simply move the king back to a corner. And white can play the king to c7, but now it's pretty much the same thing, just on the other diagonal. And again, just wait, bishop d4, and wait on a long diagonal, and nothing is going to happen. It's a really easy draw. Alright, so that's a good corner. Let's have a look at the bad corner, how I coined it. How I named it, but it's also fine and black is also holding a relatively easy draw here. Well, I should say easy draw, definitely. Alright, so that's the other corner. As you can see, now we're in this corner on H8. And the only point is that now you cannot defend completely passively in the corner. You always have to make sure that you can get out. So you should not put your king on H8 at any point. Always put on G8 or H7 in this specific case. The point is that if white plays king G6 to threaten checkmate, you always want to make sure that you're able to run away with king F8. It's very important, and at this point it's the only drawing move. And after white gives a check, run further away. I mean, it is logical. Run away from the rook and the king. And there's really not much white can try. King E6, bishop B2, rook D2. Just always keep your bishop on the long diagonal. That's important. You don't have to move it back to H8 or G7. No need to do that. Just keep the bishop on the long diagonal. Bishop G2, rook G2. Here, for example, bishop G7 would be losing because white would play king E7 and now king F7, and this is a position which is now lost because here we can see the difference. The bishop can be pinned, and this time black is not stalemated and he has to move the king, allowing white to checkmate on h6. So instead, just king h7, just keep moving between these two squares, g8 and h7. And king f7, you already know what to do. Checkmate is threatening and run away with the king. And if king f5, then just wait with the bishop and it is the same thing again. Also a pretty easy draw. And now I would like to show you the only winning position for white, which is the following. This position is always winning for white, no matter where the bishop is. If you got the king in a corner like that, restricted with the rook on f7, it is always winning because, as we will see, white is able to win a tempo and then threaten checkmate and black cannot do anything. So let's say it's white's turn, white's move, rook f1, bishop h2. Now just keep chasing the bishop until you can move your rook somewhere and attack the bishop somewhere here and then get the rook over to 8th rank. And this is important, everything happens with tempo, everything happens with an attack on the bishop, because if at any point it was black's move, maybe he could run away still. So let's see, rook f2, bishop g3 and now rook g2. And that's pretty nice here. Black can now not play bishop h4 because check with the king, or rather with the rook, and the king attacks the bishop is lost. Same is true for bishop f4. After bishop e5 we see the typical maneuver. Now again the bishop is attacked, bishop has to move, and now the rook comes down, bishop has to go here, and this is already familiar to you. Rook just plays a waiting move, king has to go in the corner and checkmate. A little bit more stubborn is bishop d6, but it's also fairly easy. Rook d2, and now bishop e7, and now this is maybe the only important moment. Now not rook e2, because then black could play king f8 and he would save himself, but simply any move along to the a, b or c file. Let's simply say rook a2, and now usually black would be able to play king f8, but at this point, as you can see, now his own bishop is putting the king into a bad position, not allowing him to leave, and black has to give the bishop, and we reach the winning endgame, king and rook against king. And also after bishop c7, again one more attack, and now there's nothing black can do. The rook comes down, and now you simply have to play a waiting move, and you have lots of waiting moves to choose from. Just rook d8, king has to go in the corner and checkmate. So that's all you need to know about rook versus bishop, how to defend this position. Usually very easy. Just keep these little tips in mind I gave you. Usually go for the good corner if you have a choice, but the bad corner is also fine. It's not really bad. And just keep in mind the position we just saw with the rook on f7. This setup is the only setup in which white can win. Alright, thanks for watching and see you soon. Bye.